Welcome back to the Tigerium Hangar. This is Mike, and I'm coming at you with yet another video game collection coverage, review, discussion, and I'm talking today about Turbografx16 and the Turbo Express. And yeah, I got some wires in there. It's not as neat looking as I'd like, but I don't want to disconnect everything from my primary system. So anyway, I'm going to have a special treat at the very end. I'm talking about the game format and the hue card, and I'm talking about all of this hardware, the magazines, the games, the CDs, the different variations, iterations, and all that stuff. And I'm also got a special treat at the end, so stay till the end to find out something. The hue card is also a little bit of information about that. So with that also, please like, subscribe, comment. If you dislike the video, please let me know why. If you like the video, please let me know why. And if you have any discussions you want to join in, please. So I want to talk about the main thing I like about this system, and that's the Turbo Express. And that's what I really liked about Turbografx16, is that you had a handheld portable game system. Now this thing is bigger than the original Game Boy, and it uses the actual system cards. This is not a special card it's in a different format. My understanding is the first game system to ever have, well, it's kind of like the Switch, right? You had the games can play on the console, they can play in this. So you had the both home and to-go experience, except, you know, it's not all one console. That's the difference between the Switch and this one. But this is what really got me liking this. Now, this blazing lasers, as you can hear, I got the sound all the way up. You can barely hear it, right? It's real quiet. And that's because capacitors. Capacitors are going out, and you need to get your capacitors fixed. And so I replaced my own video capacitors in both of my Turbo Expresses, and I replaced multiple of the sound capacitors, and I did a jumper wire I saw on a video a decade ago, and they're still working fine, but I probably need a complete recap on all these systems. Since I like the Turbo Express the most, I'm going to show you this add-on. It was so you could watch TV on it, but kind of wasteful because nowadays it doesn't exist, right? So you just don't have any way to watch those analog, to use this or anything. But you can use this to feed a video signal to it, which I don't know why you'd want to do that. So I'm going to start by showing you the actual original Turbografx16 system. Now this thing here is, this is what it looks like. And it's got like a serial port on the back. You can plug it's just the bare bones minimum what you need. You can still pick your channel, you've got your analog or whatever, and then you got your power supply. So so it's made like this because I always intended for it to upgrade to the CD. Now once you plug it into the CD compartment, which there's a big locking mechanism on that. So this CD compartment add-on was something that they had that just, you know, gave better graphics, more data and all that stuff. It was going on that trend. This kind of got stuck in that whole kind of like the Sega CD realm, and the graphics are not amazing. The games aren't amazing, but they're pretty cool. So you can unlock the CD portion itself and pull it out, and it could be a CD player if you have an external power source. And I actually used mine back in the 90s to play CDs in my car, and I ran it through a special tape attachment for the cassette tape, and that was pretty cool. Yeah, so you have to have the CD system card to play the CDs, and so basically what it does is it just redirects it to use the serial port. Next I want to show you the Duo. Now the Duo has, you can play the regular games, it would boot straight from the games, or if you had the system card in it would boot over to the CD side. So it's a pretty cool system. It does everything that the other one did except sleeker and easier, but mine needs a recap, so it's not doing me. And I'm not saying talked about again. I'm saying needs capacitors replaced on it so that it will work right. So next we'll talk about the game. So when I got my first Turbografx16, it was in a lot on eBay for like 175 bucks, 7 or 8 top title games, and most of those are here. Now this is Space Harrier. This wasn't part of it, but anyway, Space Harrier. I'd say it's a direct port, but it's actually stylized. It looks a little different. Galaga 90 exact port, perfect. Newtopia. It's kind of a clone of Legend of Zelda. Raiden, space, shoot 'em up. Alien Crush is obviously, well, not obviously, but it is a pinball game. It's pretty cool. I'm really upset. Spider House was one of those games that was started out on the system, then it started getting ported over to other ones. But it was not the best game in the world, but very specific. Like, I remember this game, and my cart stopped working. Ninja Spirit, favorite game for the system. You'll see some gameplay of that in a minute, or maybe 3. Bonk's Revenge, the mascot of the system. I do not know what this Ordine. Bloody Wolf. Bloody Wolf is like a clone of... Well, no, it's not a clone at all. It's similar to Contra. No, nowhere near as good as Contra. Contra is my favorite all-time game. So, Samurai Ghost. That's just giant. You're a giant sprite on there. The character takes up almost the whole screen on it. It's pretty cool. Taken to the Hoop. A couple copies of that. Probably a very common game. Yo, bro. This is now. So there's a common story. I got most of these games. $5 at a local game store when I was buying another game. I said, hey, every time I did a deal, how about one of those for $5? And we went to 10 each, and so I ended up getting probably about a dozen for that. JJ and Jeff, weird side scroller. I thought it was stupid, and then I've seen a couple of reviews about it that made me just kind of like its quirks a little bit better. Sinistron, one of the top shooters. I mean, I can't lie about that one. And then Legendary Axe 2. Now, the Legendary Axe series probably is what got me sold on the system, or as a format anyway. Next, we want to talk about packaged games and the packaging and how they did it. Now, so you get this box, all right, and then it'd come in this. You'd have the CD case in there, and which is interesting because I find it really hard to find the box these days because it felt like you had the box because you had the case. Now, unless you got it like this, where it was in some weird kind of plastic enclosure instead of the CD case, the jewel case. So we'll go run through these real quick. Some of them are doubles, duplicates, so it's going to go pretty fast. But Dragon Spirit is a kind of a shooter game, and let's kind of show you real quick. There's 2 different styles. No, it'd be funny if Dragon Spirit had 2 different styles. One just clips the game in place, which I think actually makes a lot more sense. The other style has like a sticky, gummy residue that'll hold the game in place on the back of it. Sonic Spike, Victory Run, and just a racing game. Crater Maze, and I really haven't played much of that. Military Madness is not my kind of game, so I just haven't played it. R-Type is another space shooter, and it's a port, a little bit different. Blazing Lasers. So I want to talk about Blazing Lasers. The unique thing about it is that it is one of the best games on the system. It's a launch title, and if you look at any other game system, PS2, PS3, even PS1 to a point, there's some PS1 games that I like that were launch titles, but none that I could say are in probably the top 5 of the game's lifespan that are launch. Psychosis, another crazy shooter game. There's a lot of shooter games on here, and if you've watched any of my other videos, I like to put my games, like, categorize them, and they're not alphabetical order, they're more like by the genre. But Superstar Soldier, another shooter game. Although I don't have Sinistron mixed in with these, this makes no sense. Fantasy Zone, side-scroller. I think side-scroller shooter. These are some of the games I picked up in my lot. Now I'm going to tell you about that here in a second. Legendary Axe. Now this isn't like the hardest game to find or anything, so I've got a few copies of it. Legendary Axe 2, here's my boxed copy. Then I have a couple copies of Sidearms. And I think, no, Legendary Axe might be one. No, somewhere in there they started using these little gummy sticky things, which made no sense. But Pac-Land, I got a couple copies of it. Pac-Land's an interesting game. I had it on the Atari Lynx. And at the time, like, I thought, it's not that bad of a game for the tech that was going on at the time. Bonk's Adventure. The Bonk game in the Bonk series was like something you could only get on the TurboGrafx16, and then it seemed to get ported over to all the other systems, so whatever. Vigilante, port of a game, Cybercore, and Sinistron, one of the top shooters. Hard, and that's the other thing about this system. They're really hard, these Dungeon Explorer. So, like, if the same game's made on this system and it's made on another system, it is harder. Like Shinobi, which I don't have, which I had. Keith Kirchhoff's. This one made use of that when I was talking about the stickiness. So if you get, like, let's say a game that it's actually sort of holds 20 years later, But so Keith Courage, I think, was a pack-in game, either a pack-in game or it was just like the most common game. I don't think it's a bad game, but I think it's halfway a sorry game because going through the villages or the above layer sucks. Galganite, good game. And then the down low on the Keith Courage is the fun part. If the whole game was like the down low part, but it kind of, I guess, makes you crave going back down below because the above is so boring. Take to the hoop. Sports games, I mean, I'm just not a fan of sports games, volleyball. So these are CD games. You got the Yeez book 1 and 2. You've got the Last Alert, Valis 2, and then Monster Lair. Okay, so there's kind of a weird phenomenon that you'd think that I went ahead and got this guy's collection, and it doubled my collection. And it not only that, but the majority of my box ones come from him because he kept his stuff pristine. And I'm going to show you a few more things I got from this guy, but you'd think that, man, this is all I need, I'm good, and I started wanting more and more and more, and you find that this stuff's gotten ridiculously expensive lately, so getting more and more and more, or something that I don't have, is really hard. So I went ahead and started working on picking up some Japanese games. Now, there are about 650 total titles released, and only 138 of them made it to the U.S., and so that actually is not a bad number at the time, and how... Like, in my mind, I thought there were only like 20 or 30 games, so 138 is quite a bit. So anyway, I started picking these lots up on eBay, and I got 2 lots of Japanese PC Engine games, and I got a lot of some WonderSwan color titles, and this WonderSwan something I'm probably going to do a video about down the road. But got it all and then combined the shipping and stuff, and made these about 3 a piece. WonderSwans were like 6 a piece, and which they normally go for 15, 20, and these by themselves can go for as much as $20 a piece. So I thought it was a pretty good deal, and I only got doubles on this one. That's Mahjong, whatever. I think that's wrestling or something. So anyway, so going through them real quick. Obviously, boxing, clacks, and we know it's a puzzle game. Not 100% sure about these two. I think that's a fighting game. This is Alien Crush. Then we got a 3 racing games, a system card for when I get a what would you call that thing? The Turbografx. Eventually, I might get one. Tennis, boxing, and then got a few of these. I think I need a Turbografx card, a different one, to tell you the truth. And then golf, wrestling, baseball. I'm not sure. Motorcycle racing, fighting, and something else. So did pretty good. A couple of lots and only one actual true double. Next thing I want to talk to you about is the controller, and it's something that was really cool about it that didn't happen at the time was you could pick your settings and do turbos. That was cool. I actually like that. I didn't buy a system when I was younger and back in the day, and nowadays it's like you can set your peripherals, do whatever. You can buy modded controllers and all that kind of stuff. That's something that didn't go on so much back in the day. So I want to talk to you the difference between a Turbografx16 and then this is the PC Engine controller, but it also works on the Duo. Since the Duo, I don't know why, it uses the Japanese controller versus the US controller, and I don't know why they didn't make them all the same. So, like, there's some questions that I need answered, but I do want to talk about one more thing. I said one more thing, I mean a few more things, but first of all, this is the plug I use for my Turbo Express, and it's 1,000 milliamp set at 7.5 volts. If you can see that. And of course, you're going to be warned, don't use anything with the official product. You better know your polarities right, or you will mess your system up. But I've used this exact one with the exact same setup for 20 years, since 97, and neither of my Turbo Expresses have caused damage due to that, other than, of course, the capacitor's going out. So the next thing I want to talk about is the magazines. Now, there was a Turbo Play magazine, and they made... it ran quarterly for 3 years, I think, October, November, or something like that. I think there's only like 12, maybe it was 2 years, every 6 of them a year. But, I mean, obviously this is Bloody Wolf they're talking about. This one here is Newtopia they're talking about. And then this one here is Legendary Axe that they're talking about. And then, so Turbo Play, I think I've got almost every magazine that was made for Turbo Play. And I've got one of these Turbo Force magazines, and they would just basically show you same thing as It's really the same thing as Nintendo Power, or maybe it's not because it doesn't have quite all the same things Nintendo Power had in it. But really thin, and you know, there's only so many games to talk about there, right? And I got a couple of copies of this one called Duo World, and it's just another magazine. I didn't know they made this many. They made 4 different magazines for this system. Just want to show you some real cool old stuff here. I've got the instructions for the CD player for the Duo. There was also a Turbo Club that you could join, and this was a magazine from the Turbo Club. So some really cool stuff. And also, a gentleman I got this from was real big into codes, and he had a type list of codes for me, the books, and he was so excited to be able to share his wealth of gaming knowledge and receipts and stuff. It's really cool though, like a trip down memory lane. He cut the backs off of his stuff. Turbo Gear, the Gamers Collection. So you could buy like Turbografx16 gear, and they look like old Oakleys. That's cool. And then just random interesting stuff. Lastly, I'm going to show you something special involving cue cards. And the thing is that the Sega Master System that competed with the Nintendo Entertainment System, and it was before the Genesis, actually had a slot on the original Sega Master System to put cue cards in. They were not exactly the same. They're sort of a 1-to-1 size ratio. They flip the direction of the artwork, and there's 2 rows of pins. So there's differences. So it's not exactly the same as a cue card. I have bought some, I guess you say, aftermarket sleeves, because most of the games I bought didn't have sleeves. But I'm going to run through this collection for you real quick. I got this My Hero, and I've got some, it's in a baggie. I've got Transbot, and Spy vs. Spy. And the thing is, these are shorter. If you put a Turbografx16 one on there, the sleeve for the 16 is a lot bigger. I don't know if you can see that, but anyway. Fighting Falcon. I've got 3 copies of that. And I started collecting this earlier this year just because. Ghost House, I made my own cover out of my own box. Teddy Boy. Now, these are hard to get. I mean, oddly enough, for the counterparts cost like $5, and then just because they're on the card, they're 20. And then Bank Panic is probably the most expensive one I bought. And I'm missing 1 on the cue card. And I said, forget it. I'll just spend $5. They said 15, but they gave it to me for 5 on soccer. And thanks for watching. I'm going to leave you with a little bit of gameplay footage on a PSP. If I can get this screen just right at the right angle. Because I'm a handheld guy and I could do it on the screen, or don't have an Elgato capture card yet. And this does not look the greatest. Anyway, Turbografx out.